I watched my husband's hand rest on her lower back, his fingers spread possessively across the silk fabric of her dress, the same way he used to touch me 3 years ago, before I became like furniture in his world, before I turned into the silent ghost who poured his whiskey and pretended not to hear him on the phone with her at 2 o'clock in the morning. Stood there in the doorway of our living room, holding a tray with his favorite Scotch Dot, the expensive kind he only drank when celebrating something big. I watched him laugh at whatever she was saying. I watched him lean close enough that I could smell her perfume from where I stood. 10 feet away, something cold and sharp settled in my chest. Not exactly jealousy, more like clarity, the kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself about what you have known for months, maybe years. You married a man who sees you as decoration. As the respectable wife he shows off at family functions, while his real life, his real passion happened somewhere else with someone else. I cleared my throat softly, the way I had been trained to announce my presence without startling him, without making him angry. Mitchell turned. His face changed from open affection to that blank, polite mask he wore around me now, around the woman he had stopped seeing years ago. Even though I was standing right in front of him. "Your scotch," I said quietly. I set the tray on the table beside them. I did not look at her. I did not give him the satisfaction of seeing me react. To the fact that his mistress was sitting in our home. In the living room I had decorated. On the couch I had chosen, drinking wine from glasses I had selected from a boutique in Florence during our honeymoon. When I still believed in fairy tales and men who meant their vows. "Thank you, Kathy," Mitchell said. His voice had that distant politeness he used with servants, with people whose feelings did not register as real to him. He did not introduce me to the woman. He did not acknowledge the insanity of this moment. He did not seem to notice or care that I was standing there watching my marriage dissolve in real time. The woman, blonde, younger than me by maybe 5 years, beautiful in that polished, expensive way that money bought, smiled up at me. With something that might have been pity or triumph, could not tell which, and did not care enough to figure it out. "You have a lovely home," she said. Her voice was warm and friendly, like we were acquaintances meeting at a charity luncheon. Like she was not sleeping with my husband, like this was normal. "Thank you," I said. My voice came out steady and calm, exactly the tone I had perfected over 6 years of marriage to a man who ran the most powerful crime family in Chicago, a man who valued control above all else, who demanded that his wife be elegant, composed, invisible until needed, and I had become exactly what he wanted. So perfectly invisible that he had forgotten I was a person at all. Forgotten I had a mind. Forgotten I had eyes. Forgotten I had the capacity to see everything he thought he was hiding. I turned to leave. Mitchell's voice stopped me. "Kathy, we'll need the room for about an hour. Take the staff and make sure we're not disturbed." He said it casually. Easily. Like he was asking me to adjust the thermostat. Not asking me to clear out. So he could be alone with his mistress in our home. I felt something crack inside me. Something that had been bending for years finally snapped clean through. "Of course," I said. I walked out with my head high. My footsteps silent on the marble floors, and I did exactly what he asked. I dismissed the staff, told them to take an early evening. Sent the guards to the outer perimeter, made sure my husband had complete privacy. Then I did something Mitchell never expected, because he had spent 6 years teaching me to be invisible, and he had done such a good job that he forgot invisible people see everything. Hear everything, remember everything. Before we go deeper, I need to know where you are watching from. Are you somewhere you can stay for the next while? Because what happens next, what I did, what Mitchell lost, is going to change everything you think you know about power, about revenge, about the kind of danger that comes wrapped in silence and patience. This is the story of how I stopped being the invisible wife and became the woman who burned an empire to the ground without raising my voice once. This is the story of Kathy Brennan, and I need you to stay with me because the final twist is something nobody could have predicted. Not even me. What you're about to hear is going to shock you. Kindly hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from. Stay with me because the truth about who I really am, the truth about what I have been doing for 6 years, is something that will change everything you think you know about this marriage. About this story about the woman standing in that doorway holding a tray of scotch. My name is Kathy Dodd, at least that is what I call myself now. 6 years ago, I was Catherine Chun, daughter of a real estate developer in San Francisco, graduate of Stanford, with a degree in international finance. Fluent in 4 languages, skilled in the kind of high-level negotiation that made millions appear and disappear across borders without anyone noticing. I met Mitchell Brennan at a business conference in New York. He was there representing his family's legitimate holdings, the restaurants and construction companies and import businesses that served as fronts for the drug trafficking and money laundering and political corruption that actually funded the Brennan Empire. He was magnetic. The kind of man who commanded rooms without trying. Who made you feel like you were the only person in the world when he looked at you. And I fell for it. Fell for him. Fell for the fantasy that I could be the woman who tamed the beast, who brought light into darkness. Who transformed a criminal into something better. Or at least that is what I told myself. That is what I told him. But the truth, the real truth that I have kept hidden for 6 years, is far more complicated than a simple love story. We were married 6 months later in a ceremony that cost $2 million and made the society pages in 3 states. For the first year, I played my role perfectly, the devoted wife, the woman who had fallen desperately in love with Mitchell Brennan. Despite his family's reputation, despite the whispers at parties about where his money really came from, despite the federal agents who showed up at our engagement party asking questions they already knew the answers to, Mitchell believed every second of my performance. Because men like him, men who have spent their whole lives being feared and obeyed, they want to believe they are lovable underneath all that violence. They want to believe that someone can see past their crimes to the good man hiding inside. Even when no good man exists, that I was not falling in love during that first year. I was learning. Studying. Documenting. Watching the way Mitchell conducted business, the way he spoke to his associates, the way he managed his empire through a combination of fear and strategic generosity. I was storing every piece of information, like files in a cabinet, organizing it, categorizing it, building something Mitchell did not know existed. Case. Evidence. Ammunition for a war he did not know we were fighting because he thought we were on the same side. He thought I was his wife. His partner, his greatest asset, and I let him believe that. Because belief makes people careless, and I needed Mitchell to be careless around me. By year 2, the performance got harder. Mitchell started staying out later, coming home smelling like other women, treating me like expensive furniture that needed occasional dusting but no real attention. I had to remind myself why I was there. Had to remember the mission. Had to push down the small part of me that had started to wonder if maybe the performance was becoming real. If maybe I had started to actually care about this man I was supposed to be destroying. But then Mitchell would do something cruel, would dismiss me in front of his associates, would bring his mistress to our home, and I would remember exactly why I was there, exactly what he deserved, exactly how this story needed to end, because here is what you do not know yet. Here is what Mitchell never knew. Here is the twist that changes everything you think you understand about this marriage. I was not just a wife who got fed up and decided to turn evidence. I was never just a wife at all. 6 years ago when I met Mitchell Brennan at that conference in New York, when I smiled at him across the hotel bar and let him buy me a drink and pretended to be charmed by his attention. I was already working for the FBI. I had been recruited straight out of Stanford, brought into a special unit that focused on organized crime, and I had spent 2 years training for deep cover work before. They gave me the assignment that would define my career: get close to Mitchell Brennan, marry him if possible, gather evidence from the inside dot, and help us dismantle the most powerful crime family in the Midwest dot. So when Mitchell proposed after 3 months of dating, when he slipped that 5-carat diamond on my finger and told me I was the love of his life, when his mother cried at our wedding and told me I was the daughter she had always wanted, I was already an FBI agent, already recording conversations, already photographing documents, already building the case that would put Mitchell away for life. Every moment of our marriage, every breakfast I made, every dinner party I hosted, every quiet evening we spent together, I was working, always working, never stopping, never letting my guard down, because the moment I forgot who I really was, the moment I started to believe my own performance, that was the moment everything would fall apart. The Mistresses started around year 2, and I will not lie, that part hurt, not because I loved Mitchell. I did not. I could not. I had trained myself too well to maintain professional distance, but because it was humiliating. Because it meant my performance was not good enough, was not compelling enough to hold his attention, and in my line of work, in deep cover operations, your performance is everything, It is what keeps you alive, what keeps your cover intact, what keeps the mission moving forward. So when Mitchell started sleeping with other women, when he started treating me like I was invisible, I had to figure out how to use that, how to turn his dismissal of me into an advantage, and that is when I realized something crucial, something that changed the entire trajectory of the operation. Invisible people hear everything. Mitchell had spent so much energy teaching me to be the perfect mafia wife, quiet, elegant, unobtrusive, that he had accidentally created the perfect spy. He talked business around me like I was not there, took phone calls in the next room without bothering to close the door, left documents on his desk because he assumed I would not understand them or would not care. I absorbed all of it, every conversation, every phone call, every document. I fed it all back to my handler, Agent Marcus Reed, who I met once a month under the cover of visiting my sister in San Francisco. By year 3, I had enough evidence to arrest Mitchell, enough to charge him with racketeering and money laundering, enough to put him away for 15 years at least. But Agent Reed wanted more. He wanted the whole family, wanted Mitchell's brothers and his cousins and his associates, wanted to dismantle the entire Brennan organization in one coordinated strike. That meant I had to stay deep, had to maintain my cover, had to keep playing the invisible wife, while gathering evidence on everyone in Mitchell's inner circle. I did it. I smiled at family dinners while recording conversations. I hosted parties while photographing guest lists. I played my roles so perfectly that no one, not Mitchell, not his mother, not his brothers, not his most paranoid security chief ever, suspected that the quiet wife in the corner was actually a federal agent systematically destroying their empire. But here is what they do not tell you about deep cover work. Here is what they do not prepare you for in training. The longer you play a role, the more that role starts to feel real. The more the lines blur between who you are and who you are pretending to be. By year 4, I was having trouble remembering which parts of Kathy Brennan were performance and which parts were actually me. I had been Catherine Chun for 24 years and Kathy Brennan for 4, but somehow Kathy felt more real, more solid, more true than Catherine ever had. That terrified me, because losing yourself in a cover identity, that is how Agents get killed. That is how operations fall apart. That is how you end up actually caring about the people you are supposed to be betraying. I started seeing the FBI psychologist more frequently. Started talking through the identity confusion, the moral ambiguity of building intimate relationships based on lies, the guilt that came from knowing I was going to destroy families, even if those families were criminal enterprises that deserved destruction. The psychologist told me what they always tell deep cover agents. You are doing important work. You are saving lives. The people you are deceiving chose their path. You did not make them criminals. You are just documenting the crimes they were already committing. But none of that helped when I would lie awake at 3 o'clock in the morning listening to Mitchell breathe beside me, not knowing that in 6 months or a year or whenever Agent Reed gave the order, I was going to burn his entire world to the ground. Year 5 was when everything started accelerating. Mitchell's organization expanded into new territory, started trafficking heroin in addition to cocaine. Started working with a Mexican cartel that made his family's violence look tame by comparison. People started dying. Not just rival criminals, but innocent people. Bystanders. A 13-year-old girl caught in crossfire. A store owner who refused to pay protection money. A witness who saw too much and talked to the wrong person. I documented all of it. Every death, every murder, every act of violence. I fed it all to Agent Reed. I watched the case grow from a simple organized crime prosecution into something much bigger. Much more important. Chance to actually stop the killing. To actually make Chicago safer. But I also watched what it was doing to me. The way my hands shook after documenting a murder. The way I would throw up in the bathroom after family dinners where Mitchell's brothers joked about someone they had killed. The way I stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, stopped being able to look at myself in the mirror because the woman looking back was a stranger, someone who had gotten so good at lying that she had forgotten how to tell the truth. Agent Reed noticed. He started asking if I needed to be pulled out, if the operation was compromising my mental health, if I wanted to end this before it ended me. Every time I said no, I said, "We are too close. We have too much evidence. We cannot stop now." We were closed out by the end of year 5. We had evidence on Mitchell, his 2 brothers, 7 associates, 3 corrupt cops, 2 judges, and a state senator. We had enough to dismantle the entire Brennan organization and make a significant dent in organized crime in the Chicago area. We just needed a few more months to coordinate with the D. We arrested everyone simultaneously. There would be no one left to take over. No power vacuum that would just be filled by someone worse. So I stayed. I played the invisible wife. I told myself it would all be worth it, that when this was over, when Mitchell and his family were in prison, when the killing stopped, I would be able to look back on these 6 years and feel proud of what I had accomplished. Proud of the lives I had saved. Proud of the justice I had helped deliver. But the truth is, I do not know if I will ever feel proud. I think maybe I will just feel relieved that it is over. Year 6 started the same way year 5 ended. Mitchell distant and distracted. Me invisible and vigilant. Both of us playing our roles in a marriage that had never been real. I thought we would continue like this for another few months, until Agent Reed gave the signal, until the coordinated arrests happened, until my cover was blown and I disappeared into witness protection with a new name and a new life. But then something changed, something I did not anticipate, something that made me realize the performance had gone on too long, and I needed to end this now before I lost myself completely. Mitchell brought his mistress home, brought her into our house, into our living room. Into the space I had maintained and decorated and pretended was mine, and he asked me to leave, asked me to dismiss the staff and give them privacy. Something about that Moment. Something about the casual cruelty of it, the absolute certainty that I would comply. Fragile professional distance I had been maintaining. I went down to the library, the room Mitchell never used. I opened my laptop. The one that looked like any other laptop but was actually FBI issued with encryption that could not be broken. I sent a message to Agent Reed. I'm done, I wrote. I cannot do this anymore. We move now, or I am pulling myself out. I do not care if the case is perfect. I do not care if we have everyone. I am finished. Agent Reed called me 3 minutes later. On the secure phone I kept hidden in a tampon box in my bathroom. Because even paranoid crime bosses do not search their wife's feminine products. Kathy, what happened? Had been my handler for 6 years, had watched me disappear into this cover identity, had seen what it was costing me, and he asked me to leave my own house so he could be alone with her and Marcus. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot be invisible anymore. I need to be real again. I need to remember who I actually am. We will move in 72 hours. I will coordinate with the team. You just hold on for 3 more days, Doc. Can you do that? Can you play the role for 3 more days? Yes, I said. 3 more days I can do. I hung up. I went upstairs where Mitchell and his mistress were probably still together. I packed an overnight bag. I told Mitchell through the closed door that I was going to visit my sister. He barely acknowledged me, just a muffled okay through the door. I left. I walked out of that house and got in my car and drove to a safe house the FBI maintained on the north side of the city. I spent the next 3 days being debriefed, being prepared for what came next, being reminded of who Catherine Chen actually was underneath 6 years of Kathy Brennan. The raids happened on a Friday morning at exactly 6 o'clock. A.M. coordinated strikes on 15 locations. Simultaneously, Mitchell's home, his office, his warehouses, his brother's houses, the restaurant where he conducted business, everything, I was not there to see it. I was on a plane to San Francisco, being relocated, being pulled out before my cover was officially blown, but Agent Reed called me when it was done. We got everyone, he said. Mitchell, his brothers, all the associates we targeted, plus 2 we did not expect. And the evidence is overwhelming. The wiretaps, the financial records, and all the documentation you provided over 6 years. Kathy, they are going away for life, all of them. What about Mitchell? I asked. What did he say when you arrested him? He did not say anything, Agent Reed said. He just kept asking where you were. He wanted to know if you were safe, if something had happened to you. I realized he still did not know, still did not understand that his wife was the one who destroyed him. When does he find out? I asked. At the arraignment Monday, Agent Reed said. The prosecutor is going to introduce evidence, and you will be listed as a confidential informant, but your real identity will come out eventually, probably at trial. And Kathy, you need to be prepared for that. You need to be ready for Mitchell to know that everything, your entire marriage, was a lie. I know, I said, but I did not know. I was not ready. I could not imagine looking Mitchell in the eyes and watching him realize that the woman he had married, the woman he had trusted, even if he did not love, the woman who had shared his bed for 6 years, had been an FBI agent the entire time, had been documenting his crimes, recording his conversations, photographing his documents, building the cage that would hold him for the rest of his life. The arraignment was Monday morning in federal court in downtown Chicago. I sat in the back of the courtroom wearing sunglasses and a scarf. Trying to be invisible one last time, I watched them bring Mitchell in handcuffed, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of the custom suits he loved. He looked smaller, somehow, diminished, like someone had taken the air out of him. His eyes scanned the courtroom like he was looking for someone. Looking for me, when he did not find me in the family section. He looked confused, lost, like he could not understand where his wife was. The prosecutor stood and began reading charges, racketeering, conspiracy to traffic narcotics, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. With each charge, Mitchell's face got PLER. His lawyer kept objecting, kept demanding to see the evidence. The prosecutor said, "Your Honor, we have extensive documentation provided by a confidential informant who was embedded in the defendant's organization for 6 years." I watched Mitchell's face change, watched him start to understand that someone close to him, someone he trusted, had betrayed him. Who? Mitchell shouted, interrupting his own lawyer. Who was the informant? The judge banged his gavel and told him to be quiet. But Mitchell kept shouting, "Who betrayed me? I have a right to know who destroyed my family." The prosecutor looked at the judge. The judge nodded. The prosecutor said, "Your Honor, given the defendant's outburst, I think it is appropriate to reveal that the confidential informant was Catherine Chen, also known as Kathy Brennan, also known as the defendant's wife." The courtroom went silent, absolutely silent. I watched Mitchell's face go through shock, disbelief, confusion, and finally understanding. His eyes started searching the courtroom again, more frantically this time. They found me in the back row. I took off my sunglasses so he could see my face, so he could see I was not hiding anymore. I watched him mouth my name, Kathy, like a question, like an accusation, like a prayer. "You," he said. His voice was barely a whisper, but I could hear it across the silent courtroom. "You were FBI." I nodded just once. I watched something break in Mitchell's eyes, something that looked like pain or betrayal, or the total collapse of everything he thought. He understood about his life. The judge was banging his gavel. The lawyers were arguing. The bailiffs were trying to restore order. But all I could see was Mitchell's face. All I could hear was him saying over and over, 6 years. You lied to me for 6 years. Everything was a lie. Our marriage was a lie. You were a lie." I wanted to tell him that not everything was a lie. Wanted to explain that somewhere in those 6 years the performance had become complicated. That I had started to see him as human, even though I knew he was a monster. But I cannot say any of that because it would compromise the case, would give his lawyers ammunition. Would undermine everything I had spent 6 years building. So I just sat there. I watched them read the charges, watched them deny bail, watched them lead Mitchell away in chains. As he passed my row, he stopped, forced the bailiffs to stop. He looked directly at me and he said, "I loved you. I actually loved you, and you destroyed me." I looked him in the eyes and I said, "You destroyed yourself, Mitchell. I just documented it." Then he was gone, led away to holding. I walked out of that courtroom into the sunlight, and I felt nothing. No relief. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. Just the hollow feeling of having played a role for so long that I had forgotten how to be real. The trial took 8 months to prepare, 8 months of depositions and witness prep and media coverage. That turned me into a public figure, the FBI agent who went deep cover for 6 years. The woman who married a mobster to bring him down. The media loved the story. Loved the drama of it. Loved the betrayal and the deception and the long game I had played. But they did not understand the cost. Did not understand what it does to a person to lie every single day for 6 years. To build intimacy based on deception. To become someone else so completely that you lose track of who you actually are. Agent Reed tried to help. Set me up with the FBI psychologist, encouraged me to take time off. To process what I had been through, to work through the identity confusion and the moral injury and the complicated grief of destroying someone I had spent 6 years pretending to care about, but I did not want to process it. Did not want to feel it. I just wanted it to be over. Wanted to testify and watch Mitchell get convicted and disappear into my new life where I could forget Kathy Brennan ever existed. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I testified for 4 days. It was brutal. Mitchell's lawyers tried everything, tried to paint me as a seductress who had entrapped their client, tried to claim I had fabricated evidence, tried to argue that anything I had learned as Mitchell's wife should be protected by spousal privilege. The judge shut that down, ruled that our marriage had been fraudulent from the beginning, that I had never actually been Mitchell's wife in any legal sense because I had married him under false pretenses as part of a federal investigation. I sat on that witness stand and I told them everything, every crime. I had witnessed every conversation I had recorded, every document I had photographed. Mitchell sat at the defense table staring at me with eyes full of hatred. I stared right back because I could not afford to look weak, could not afford to show any emotion that his lawyers could use against me. So I performed again. I played the role of the professional FBI agent who had never wavered, who had never doubted, who had never felt anything for the man she was destroying. Everyone believed me because I had gotten so good at performing that even I could not tell anymore what was real and what was an act. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous on all counts guilty. Mitchell's face went white. His mother, who was sitting in the front row, started screaming, calling me terrible names, calling me a traitor and a liar and a destroyer of families. The judge had to have her removed, but her words echoed in my head because maybe she was right. Maybe I was a destroyer. Maybe what I had done was not justice, but something darker, something more personal, something that had stopped being about the law and started being about proving I was smarter than Mitchell, proving I could beat him at his own game. The judge sentenced Mitchell to 45 years without possibility of parole. When he asked if the defendant had anything to say, Mitchell stood up. He looked directly at me and he said, "I hope it was worth it. I hope destroying me, destroying my family, destroying everything I built, I hope that makes you happy. I hope you sleep well at night knowing you are the reason my mother will die before she sees her son again." I wanted to tell him about the 13-year-old girl caught in crossfire, about the store owner, beaten to death. About all the people his organization had destroyed. But I did not say anything because nothing I could say would change his mind. Nothing would make him see himself as anything other than a victim of my betrayal. They led him away in chains. I walked out of that courtroom for the last time. Agent Reed was waiting for me in the hallway. Those people are alive and safe because I spent 6 years lying to my husband, and that has to mean something. That has to be worth what it cost me. I want you to think about invisible people in your life, the people you dismiss, the people you do not really see, the people you talk around like they are not there. I want you to remember that invisible people see everything, they hear everything, they remember everything. When they finally choose to step into the light, when they finally reveal what they have been hiding, they can change the world. They can topple empires. They can destroy everything you have built. Mitchell Brennan made me invisible. He trained me to be the perfect MafiaWife. Quiet, elegant, unobtrusive. In doing so, he created the perfect spy. He dismissed me as insignificant. That made him careless. He assumed I did not understand his business. That made him talkative. He thought I did not matter. That gave me freedom to observe. To document. To build the case. That would destroy him. By the time he realized his mistake. By the time he understood that his invisible wife was actually the most dangerous person in his life. It was too late. The cage was already built. He was already inside it. This is the story of how I silently listened as my mafia boss husband doted on his mistress and then did what he never expected. I Stopped being Kathy Brennan, the invisible wife, and became Catherine Chen, the FBI agent. I stepped out of the shadows and into the light, and I brought 6 years of evidence with me, and I watched Mitchell's empire burn, yes. It cost me, yes. I lost pieces of myself I will never get back. Yes. I still do not know sometimes where the performance ended and reality began, but I also know that what I did mattered, that the lives saved were worth the sacrifice, that justice was served, even if it was not perfect, even if it was not clean, even if it left scars I will carry forever. Before I go, I need you to do something for me, I need you to subscribe. I need you to let me know where you are watching from, because stories, like this story, is about invisible people who find their voices. Stories about the cost of justice, stories about deep cover operations that change lives. These stories need to be told and they need to be heard. Subscribe and let us keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. This story is far from over, because somewhere out there is another Catherine, another agent going deep, another person sacrificing pieces of themselves for justice, when their story ends, when they finally surface. I want you to understand what they gave up, what it cost them, why they did it. This is the story of Catherine Chen, FBI special agent, formerly known as Kathy Brennan, wife of Mitchell Brennan. This is the story of how I spent 6 years being invisible, 6 years documenting crimes, 6 years building a case, and then stepped into the light and destroyed an empire, If there is one thing I want you to remember, one lesson I want you to take from this, it is that you should never underestimate someone based on their silence. Never assume the person standing quietly in the corner is less intelligent than you. Never ever speak freely in front of someone you have dismissed as insignificant, because invisible people see everything, and when they finally choose to be seen, they can change everything. Mitchell is serving 45 years in a federal prison in Colorado, He will die there, an old man forgotten by everyone except the people whose lives he destroyed. I am here free, alive, still figuring out who I am after 6 years of being someone else, still healing from the cost of justice, still learning how to be real. After years of performance, I do not have easy answers, do not have a neat conclusion, do not have a satisfying ending where everything works out perfectly, because real life is not like that. Real undercover operations are not like the movies, they are messy and complicated, they cost you more than you expect to pay. But I also know this, what I did mattered. Case 1 built. Put dangerous people in prison, the evidence I gathered saved lives. The sacrifice I made was worth it, even if it was not easy. If I had to do it again, if Agent Reed came to me today with another impossible assignment, another deep cover operation that would cost me years of my life and pieces of my soul, I think I would say yes, because some things are worth fighting for. Some battles are worth the cost. Injustice, real justice that is worth almost anything. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for understanding that heroism does not always look heroic. That sometimes it looks like a quiet woman standing in a doorway holding a tray of scotch, watching and listening and remembering everything. Now, go subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from. Remember, the next time you dismiss someone as insignificant, the next time you speak freely in front of someone you think does not matter, ask yourself if you are absolutely certain they are not paying attention, because if they are watching and listening and documenting everything you think they are missing, then you might be creating the very person who will destroy you. And by the time you realize your mistake, it will be far too late to do anything except watch your empire fall. Trust I know exactly how that feels from both sides now. It is over, he said. You did it, 6 years of work, and you brought down the entire Brennan organization. You should be proud. I do not feel proud, I said. I do not feel anything. Agent Reeve looked at me with something like sadness in his eyes. He said, that is normal. That is what happens when you live a lie for that long. But Kathy Catherine, you will heal. You will remember who you are, Dot. It just takes time. But I am not sure he was right. I am not sure you can spend 6 years being someone else and then just snap back to who you were before. I think maybe parts of Kathy Brennan are permanent now. I think maybe I will carry her with me for the rest of my life. The invisible wife, who saw everything, who heard everything, who remembered everything, and used it all to destroy. The man she had promised to honor and obey. The divorce was finalized 3 months after the trial, dissolving a marriage. That had never been real in the first place. I got nothing, because I had never wanted anything, had never been in it for money or property, or any of the things real wives fight for in divorce court. I had been in it for evidence, for justice, for the case that would make my career and save lives. And I got all of that. Mitchell went to prison. His organization collapsed. The drug trafficking in Chicago decreased by 40% in the year following his arrest. Lives were saved because of what I did. I should feel good about that. Should feel proud. But mostly I just feel tired. I am living in Seattle now under my real name, Catherine Chun. Working as a consultant for the FBI, training other agents in deep cover work, teaching them what I learned over 6 years embedded in the Brennan family. Sometimes when I am teaching, I will talk about the importance of maintaining professional distance, about not letting the cover identity become too real. I will see young agents nodding like they understand, but they do not. They cannot, because you cannot understand what it is like until you have lived it, until you have spent years pretending to be someone else, until you have lost track of where the performance ends and reality begins. Sometimes I think about Mitchell, wonder what he is doing in prison, wonder if he thinks about me, wonder if he has figured out yet that some of it was real, that not every moment was performance. That somewhere in those 6 years I had started to see him as human, even though I knew he was a monster. But I will never tell him that. Never give him the satisfaction of knowing he got to me. Never admit that the invisible wife he dismissed and betrayed actually cared more than she should have. I got a letter from him about a year after the trial, forwarded through the FBI because he did not have my address. Did not know where I had gone. I almost did not open it. Almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I read it. It said, Catherine, I have had a lot of time to think in here. Time to go over every moment of our marriage. Looking for clues. I missed. Looking for signs that you were not who you said you were. And the thing is, I cannot find them. You were perfect. Your performance was flawless. And I think that is what hurts the most. Not that you lied, but that you lied so well, I never had a chance. I loved you. I actually loved you. And I do not think you ever loved me. But I hope somewhere in those 6 years, you at least liked me a little bit. I hope I was not just a case to you. I hope some of it was real, even if most of it was a lie. I am not asking for forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it. I'm not asking you to write back. I know you will not. I just wanted you to know that you won. You beat me completely, and I finally understand why. You were always smarter than me. I was just too arrogant to notice. I read that letter 3 times, and I cried. Really cried for the first time since the whole thing started. Then I burned it, not out of anger, but because I did not need Mitchell's validation anymore. Did not need to know whether he loved me or hated me or understood what I had done. I knew what I had done. I knew it had been necessary, even if it had not been easy. and his opinion of me, whether good or bad, did not change any of that. 2 years after the trial, the FBI assigned me a new case. Another deep cover operation. Another criminal organization that needed to be infiltrated and destroyed from the inside. Agent Reed called me into his office and laid out the details. I listened. When he was done, he asked if I was interested. I said, no. I said, I cannot do that again. Cannot lose myself again. Cannot spend years pretending to be someone I am not. He nodded like he had expected that answer, like he had known before he even asked that. I was done with deep cover work. So now I teach. I train other agents. I share what I learned over 6 years as Kathy Brennan. Sometimes I will be in the middle of a lecture and I will see a young agent, some woman fresh out of the academy, eager to prove herself, eager to do important work. I will want to tell her the truth, want to warn her that deep cover work does not just cost you time. It costs you pieces of yourself. You will never get back, but I do not say that because the work is important, because lives get saved, because justice gets served. And who am I to tell someone else not to make the sacrifice I made? I started dating again, slowly. Carefully. It is hard because I spent 6 years lying to someone I was supposed to be intimate with, and that kind of deception, it changes you. Makes it hard to trust, hard to be vulnerable, hard to let someone see the real you when you are not even sure who the real you is anymore. But I am trying. I am working with a therapist. I am doing the work of integrating Catherine Chen and Kathy Brennan into someone whole. Someone who can have honest relationships. Someone who can be real. Sometimes I will be on a date and the guy will ask about my past, ask about previous relationships, and I will have to decide how much to tell, have to decide whether to mention that. I was married for 6 years to a man who never knew my real name. Usually I do not mention it because how do you explain something like that? How do you make someone understand that your entire marriage was a federal investigation? But it is there. Always there. This huge piece of my history that I cannot talk about, cannot share, cannot integrate into a new relationship. 3 years after the trial, Mitchell's appeals finally ran out. The courts had reviewed his case multiple times and found no errors. No grounds for a new trial. Nothing that would reduce his sentence. Agent Reed called to tell me it was really over now. Mitchell would spend the rest of his life in prison. The Brennan organization was completely dismantled. And I could finally close this chapter. Finally move on. I thanked him. I hung up and I realized I did not feel anything. No relief. No closure. No sense of completion. Just that same emptiness. I had been caring for 3 years, but I am healing slowly. I am learning how to be Catherine Chen. Again, learning how to be real. How to have genuine relationships. How to live a life that is not a performance. It is hard. Harder than any undercover operation I ever did. Because at least in deep cover, I had a role to play. I had a script. I had a clear objective. But in real life, there's no script. There's just you trying to figure out who you are and what you want and how to be authentic after years of being anything. But I think about the night Mitchell brought his mistress home. The night I decided I was done. The night I sent that message to Agent Reed saying we move now or I pull myself out. I wonder what would have happened if I had made a different choice. If I had stayed deep a few more months like Agent Reed wanted, if I had maintained my professional distance and not let Mitchell's casual cruelty break through my defenses, would the case have been stronger? Would we have gotten more people? Would the outcome have been different? But I also know that if I had stayed longer, I might have lost myself completely. Might have disappeared into Kathy Brennan and never found my way back to Catherine Chen. So maybe ending it when I did, maybe that was survival. Maybe that was the only choice I could have made and still remained human. This is what I need you to understand. This is the lesson I need you to take away from my story. Undercover work, deep cover operations, they are not like the movies make them seem. They are not exciting adventures where you play a role and then come home and laugh about it. They are slow erosion of self. They are years of lying to people who trust you. They are the constant fear that you will slip up, that you will forget who you are supposed to be, that you will start to actually become the person you are pretending to be. When it is over, when the case is closed and the bad guys are in prison, you do not get to just go back to normal. You carry it with you forever, the guilt, the moral injury, the identity, confusion. All of it. But I also need you to understand why we do it, why agents like me volunteer for deep cover work despite the cost. Because it works. Because 6 years of my life put a major crime boss and his entire organization in prison. Because drug trafficking in Chicago dropped by 40%, because murders decreased, because neighborhoods got safer. Because lives were saved. Real lives, people who did not get killed in crossfire. Who did not get addicted to heroin. Who did not have their businesses destroyed by protection rackets.